So what's that car going through a toll booth talking about? Well, it's talking about the new scam, or at least the way they worded the new scam. It's called smishing. Instead of phishing, it's smishing because it uses SMS technology to text you. So this text comes up, and it usually is, the text will be fairly urgent, and a lot of times it's for me that would have no connection to have your phone number even, and that's because they have an auto dialer or some program that just spits out numbers and dials it. I'm sure it's got, some things blocked, so it won't spend a lot of time calling like area codes in the U.S. that don't exist and things like that. But okay, so I got this this one saying, oh, we spotted your license plate going through a toll booth. You must pay $3.99 the toll immediately, or you may face, I don't know, get, airdropped into Yemen or something, some horrible fate. And it's like, well, wait a second, let's look at this. How would, in Maine, we have the Maine Turnpike system. It's like, how would they have my cell phone number? Probably not. And then if you think of tolls, I've never, ever gone through a toll anywhere that was in a number like that had sense to it. I mean, they don't want to be, jostling around pennies and all this stuff. So they're always whole dollar. Sometimes they're quarter amounts, like $1.25 or $2.50 sometimes, but they'll be in quarter amounts sometimes, but they're never in pennies. So this text message already was like from someone who, pretending to be someone who they aren't, having a phone number they never would have, and being incorrect about the thing that they're actually doing. Saying, well, you didn't pay this toll $3.99. Now we're going to take your license or whatever. Some crazy thing like that. So, there's several flaws with it when you look at it. In doing my research for this video, I found out that you can text those messages to 7726. And that's a thing that is an scam type thing. So you send the message to that, and supposedly there'll be a lot less people getting those. And just talking about some scams in general, I mean, sometimes we've gotten 3 or 4 calls a day from the same company trying to use the same line on us. So it's like you memorize their speech. Oh, I'm calling from Maine Car. No, they don't actually say that. I'm calling from Medicaid. And it's like Medicare, Medicare, something. And it's like, you have this heavy accent, which I'm not saying that couldn't be a person in the U.S., but you're in a boiler room. If you start talking to someone and you hear all these other people in the background, you know that he's sitting in a room with, 20 other people, and they're just doing these scam calls over and over and over. And there's some guy walking around, supervising them. Now, he gets most of the money, the supervisor and the company, and the person that's actually scamming you only gets a little bit of it. But, so, I don't know, I've gone through different things, but with the, when they call, I said, oh, yeah, I got that. Before he even says a blue and white card, I say, oh, yeah, I got that blue and white card in the mail. When did you get it? Oh, I got it 2 weeks ago. Oh, and then they I'm not calling just about that. I'm calling about this other stuff. And, and eventually you say to them something like, Medicare does not cold call people. They just don't call people. They send letters. And they aren't in these boiler rooms where, people in the U.S. from offices like that have their own office. They're using a phone that's not going to pick up all kinds of noise from other people because they're actually sitting in their office, or at least spaced far enough apart so you wouldn't hear it. So, that's one way to tell. But it's the subject, too. They're very they kind of give you general information. I'm from your cable provider. Oh, you are? Yeah. There's trouble with your computer. Your computer's got a problem. We have to get in it and fix it. Well, you know what's going on there. They're going to go in it and get information, or they're going to lock it up so that you have to pay them money to unlock it, whatever. But again, it's like, no, my cell phone, my TV's working fine. My cable's working fine. And a lot of times they can't, sometimes they can guess correctly about what service you're from. So, but a lot of times you'll say, what service are you from? And they'll give the wrong thing. Now, where I am, it's Spectrum is a big cable thing. Now, there's Dish TV and some of these other ones, but the cable one, standard one is Spectrum. And, but sometimes they'll key into that and know what is the most likely company that you might have. But again, they're asking for personal information that they should already have, so you shouldn't have to provide it. They want access to things that are none of their business. And so that's how you can tell them. So we've got the cable scam where they have to get into your computer to fix it, right? And it's like, you don't even need a computer to run cable. I mean, maybe it's easier to set it up, but you know, we've had cable forever at times when we didn't even have a desktop computer or a laptop connected to it. It doesn't really need it. So just that whole idea and their sense of urgency, like, oh, you know, all of these boxes, they're going to stop working in 3 days. Oh yeah, really? And the thing is, if they appear to be from your company that you use, just tell them you'll call them back. Then how do you call them back? You look online and find the actual number for Spectrum, or the actual number for, well, you should know that the Medicaid and Medicare, they're not going to be calling you with these types of calls. They're not going to be texting you. They just don't do that. It's too insecure. They do things in person or by mail. They might say, you might have a thing that says, oh, Drew, you got to fill out this information. We need this. But again, you can check that. You can check the addresses and everything. So there isn't a chance of, it being wrong. And it's just, there's so many scams out there. The famous original one that people still fall for, there was a story in the news, maybe it was 5 years ago, I forget now, but the Nigerian prince scam. And these people got on the news, this elderly couple, and they had been scammed out of $40,000. And what the letter or text or however you happen to get it is, this guy's a Nigerian prince, and he's in this other country. All his funds are locked up. And, if you'll just pay this amount of money, he can unlock his funds, and you're going to be rich. Well, some of the scams do appeal to your greed. The idea that, you mean, I can give this person $200 and all of a sudden I'll have $300,000? It's like, wait a second. Let's think this one through. If that was the case, that money would have already, they wouldn't be calling you and offering it to you. And then you have a lot of the online catfish, they call it. Catfishing means you pretend to be someone you aren't. So it was funny when before Musk owned Twitter, right? I would get these all the time, and there would be these, these young, pictures of a young woman and say, oh, gee, you're such a great guy, blah, 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 will you follow me? I'd like to talk to you and everything. And, that there, again, it could be some 13-year-old boy somewhere in a foreign country that you're talking to, not this beautifully attractive woman. There was one woman, and the only reason I knew about it is one time, this was years ago, but I was more into photography. Found out there was a modeling agency that actually had models and clients and things like that. And there was this woman named Wendy, and of course she looked like a model. But what someone had done is downloaded all her pictures, and they were sending them to this person somewhere, or more than one person, and carrying on a romantic conversation, saying that they wanted, they would so like to come and meet you, and they, they're in this other country, they need money for a plane ticket, they need this, they need that, but it's like, okay, how vain are you to think that these beautiful women are dying to meet you? So that's it's comical when you talk about it, but it isn't if it actually happens to you. And people fall for those scams over and over and over again. And it's that idea that, appealing to greed works, something for nothing, or almost nothing. Super attractive, whatever, of the opposite sex wants to meet you, thinks you're wonderful, and doesn't think you're a wrinkly old man, married man with kids. And so there are all kinds of ridiculous things, but it's like, you got to stop and think. Like I said, with these Twitter things, you get all these people. And now it's funny because they've gone to this phase now. I just started getting a few more of these now. I didn't get any of them for ages once, Musk took over and he got rid of a lot of these crap, spammers. And now I get some in for a while. They only showed the back of the person's head. So can you imagine that for a profile picture, I can't turn all the way around, but you just had a picture of this woman in a car, but it was showing the back of her head. She's by a fence, and again, it's the back of the head. But the idea, there was no face there, so, you couldn't do facial recognitions. One thing that pays to learn, and maybe I could do a video about this, is especially if someone sends you a picture, is to use reverse engine searching, okay? Instead of saying, oh, find me a picture of a macaw, parrot. Bloop. Go get in, you hit the imaging, and hundreds of pictures of macaws. Then you have something else, and I've always used TinyEye, but I think you can do it with Google too. You upload a photo, and they look over the entire internet, and they find where the person stole a picture, borrowed, stole, whatever you want to say, copied the photo from. I know, when one of my daughters was younger, she was very interested in, birds and parrots, and, she got, online and, looking for things, to buy that she could afford. And this one person had this parrot that was like, really, expensive bird, and they were selling it for a lot less. Well, we took that image, did a reverse search on it, and found out that it was actually taken in a pet store, like in Alabama. It wasn't where this person said at all. So that's one. That same thing could have worked with these fishing things too, with the catfishing things. Catfish, when, if the person had taken pictures of that woman and put those through a reverse engine search, they would have come up with tons of those pictures. It's very rare that someone will use a photo that's really just unique. And I think that's why some of these people are doing the things with the head turn now, whether they're taking a picture of themselves or they're it's someone else or whatever. But that way they come up with a unique photo so that when you search for it, you will find it. But you would think anyone that claims to be carrying out a relationship with you eventually is going to show you a picture of their face, and then you can do the search. So anyway, tons of scams out there, and I haven't even going into when there's a disaster, when something's going on. There's like the scammers move right in. Oh yeah, you we need this money for police dogs. We need this, we need this to say, but this flood, oh, do this, buy this thing from us, it'll be okay. And all of these types of things that it's really sad, but the people who are most vulnerable sometimes are the ones that get scammed. I mean, sometimes it's people that just have too big an ego or are too greedy, but a lot of times it's people with, some limited capacity. And then one of them, and I think I've gotten 2 calls like this, someone calling and they're your grandchild and they're in trouble. They're in Mexico. And if they don't pay this $300 fine, they're going to be in prison in Mexico for 30 days. And it's like, one guy I was listening to, and I said, gee, this is funny. I don't have any male grandchildren. They're all girls. And then he was kind of like, oh, and he hung up. But, the person comes on in a kind of whiny voice. Oh, I'm so, and the voice isn't super clear. So I could see maybe why someone could confuse that with a voice. But it's like some people that are older that don't even have grandchildren have paid that money because they're confused that they don't even have grandchildren. Or sometimes you do have grandchildren, and it's like what you need to do is really ascertain whether they could be in Mexico or not, rather than, in college at the University of Southern Maine or something like that. But there you go. But smishing, the new thing, all these things, we're going to get all these scams now. They've got the auto text. Instead of just the auto dialers, it's still using phone numbers, but the scams are going out as text. And generally, you shouldn't believe any of them at all. And if you do have a question, if they say it's Medicare or Medicaid or the IRS or whatever, call them up and see. Call them up and don't respond to that. Call up an official number that you yourself have determined is the correct one.